"Hey, welcome to Don't Pro Me blah, 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 blah.
Take two.
Don't pro me, bro. Dad's gone weird, whatever." And we'll just be like, "I'm Mike,
I'm Josh.
I'm Andrew.
and we are just gonna
About
talk
to
now."
probe you, bro.
I'm about to grope you, bro. That was fucking perfect. I can't even really blame it on miscommunication because it's just my lack of awareness. I thought we were doing time travel, but apparently we're doing the Baltic Fleet.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had the Baltic Fleet, the Titanic, and the Indianapolis.
And I am as prepared for those things as I was for time travel. And my plan for time travel was to just bank on Josh's endless knowledge on it and just run with it. So I am not prepared at all. So
Right.
I remember some things, but
Well, I mean, I think you know enough about each situation,
right, yeah.
that we can play off of that. We could talk about other things. It doesn't matter. We could talk about time travel. We could talk about
Can we talk about my
who
feet?
are some other people I wrote down? Let's see. I wrote down some things that were interesting to me.
Completely unfazed.
The Tilly Foster mine. That's a good one to delve into.
Andrew and I talk about
Um,
my feet a lot.
oh yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I wrote down some other things that were interesting, and maybe we can just use those for subject matter later and talk
Yeah,
about them.
is this all in the Google Keep thing?
Nope, it's all
Of course.
You guys are all organized with Google Keep. I'm still over here filling notebooks and stashing them under my nightstand.
No, don't get ahead of yourself because I just opened Google Keep and we have a topic for this episode and there are 4 lines.
Nice.
Yeah, so not so organized, don't feel bad.
Yeah, I was just banking off of memory from watching the 3 videos that I watched and then just getting familiarized with it and then was gonna build off of what you guys were talking about.
See, what my problem is I will have faith in myself to do the exact same thing as that. And I will watch one video, be like, "Wow, interesting take." I'll find another video. Different take, I like it. Watch another video, get a little distracted, come back, watch another video. And then I am so overwhelmed with everything that I don't remember a fucking thing.
I have keywords written down if we wanna start with,
That's how I was
random.
doing research on time travel. Like, I just was just so overwhelmed with the science, and it was just like, "Okay, I gotta walk away."
And
Yeah.
time travel is a weird one because it's like, well, if this happens, well, technically that's this theory, and then if this happens, technically it's this, and it just like gets out of hand really quickly.
Yeah, everyone wants to be a rules lawyer about it. And they're like, "Well, no,
Mhm.
you wouldn't be able to do that because if you were time traveling, that like, you don't know how to do it, so don't act like it's got a set of rules."
That is one thing. I don't care what the topic is. I don't care about any of it. Anyone who speaks with absolute certain facts on any topic, I can't stand it.
Yeah, when
I
they're
was
just,
listening
like,
to a podcast.
100% authority on an unknown subject, they're like, "This is the way."
Right,
It's
and I was listening to a podcast today about if the moon landing was fake or not. I don't know. I'm pretty interested in it, but both people annoyed the shit out of me because they're like, "Oh, it was absolutely 100% fake." And the other guy was like, "No, it was 100% real. You're a moron." It's like, "Hang on, man. Can we just talk about it?"
right. Can we just kick this around?
Right.
It is an interesting one, though. Um, the main points I have for the Baltic Fleet or the 2nd Pacific Squadron, uh, I really should sometime look into what happened to the first one. Um, but it was and the Baltic Fleet was in operation because Russia was engaged in the Russo-Japanese War, and the Russo-Japanese War started because China had this nifty little port called Port MacArthur, and Russia wanted to use that, but there's territory in the way, borders, and all that, and they took it over with outposts that they had over there, but that pissed off the Japanese because at the time the Japanese were like, "Hey, nobody raids the Chinese but us." And that was kind of like their stomping ground. So the Japanese took issue with the Russians holding the Chinese port of MacArthur It's already weird. You know what I mean? Uh, and Russia decides to reinforce Port MacArthur by sending the Baltic Fleet. And the Baltic Fleet had 18,000 miles to sail to reach Port MacArthur. And along the way, they
'Cause you can't
had
go north because
no.
ice.
Correct, and they have to come all the way down south past Denmark, around the Horn of Africa, like, literally around the entire world, 18,000 miles, and they had no refueling holdings anywhere on the way. There was not a single Russian fort or company or port, uh, so no refueling holdings, nowhere for them to stop, without relying on the generosity of, like, British fishing vessels and Denmark and other ports to just be like, "Hey, yeah, I guess we'll sell you some fuel and you can stop here." So it was poorly planned, made up of over 140 ships. The vast majority of the people who manned those ships were so green, had just been conscripted from wherever they could find people. Most of them couldn't swim, had never tied a knot before, had many of them had never even seen the ocean before. And they threw them all in this ragtag squadron full of boats. Some of them were military vessels. The vast majority were repurposed and commandeered civilian vessels, outfitted with weapons. And they sent them on this 18,000-mile journey. And that is the preface for everything else that follows in what is, commonly known as the worst naval disaster in the history of the world, not just Russia, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's
and to set the stage for this, they weren't headed to, like, some small battle or anything like that.
No,
The
no, no,
Japanese
no.
had 100,000 soldiers at
It's the
Port
turn.
Arthur,
Yeah, it's
and
the
by the
turn of
time
the
they took
century
siege
in
of Port
modern
Arthur,
weaponry.
they had killed 6,000 Russians and took 20,000 Russians prisoner.
Yes.
And so all
Yep.
these people from this Baltic fleet were completely incapable of even sailing their ships, and they were headed to a pretty serious battle.
Yeah, to a
Also,
pretty serious war, pretty serious fighting force.
I don't know if it
Um
was mentioned, but this was 1904.
I don't think we did mention the date, and that's probably a good
Yeah.
thing. 1904. So it's the turn of the century, and everybody has new toys. You know what I mean? We're just coming out of the 1800s. 1900, if you look at weapons that were manufactured around the world in the year 1900 to like 1905, like that was the birth of modern weaponry. Everybody was itching to try out their stuff. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so you had that happening, and the first, correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone has it, but I think the first major incident along the path was the Dogger Bank incident. And that was the fleet encountered British fishing vessels.
I think that's right.
And I think there was an incident before that where they panicked because they thought they saw Japanese torpedo boats off the coast of Denmark. But like the first
Yeah.
major incident was the Dogger Bank incident, in which these British fishing vessels were just doing their thing, bringing in a catch. Round the bend comes the Baltic Fleet, and they see the British fishing vessels. They look at each other and they say, "Those are Japanese torpedo boats." And they proceed to open fire for a duration of over 20 minutes, as if they were firing upon the Japanese. They fired for 20 minutes. One British fisherman was killed, two Russians were killed,
Somehow.
and no ships were hit. None, no ships were hit.
After all of
Um,
that,
after all of that, for
literally
20
nothing.
minutes. Yep.
Can you fucking imagine? You're just having a night like, just imagine here. Just one day, you're out on your boat fishing. They're probably far enough away you can just barely see them, and you're just like, "Oh, wow, what's that?" And then everything around you just starts exploding.
Oh,
And to be this, like, part of almost the beginning of a world war.
yeah, like quite literally. Britain was
Like,
pretty upset.
literally, they almost started many wars with nations over this.
Yes, indeed. Um,
And I think I remember, like, reading and watching that they literally had to argue with the British government that, "No, I assure you, this was just an
Yeah,
accident,
oh, yeah, they had to make the case that it was not deliberate
an
because
act
the
of war."
British
Yeah.
government was like, "You're trying to murder civilians." Like, they're
Yeah.
like, "No, no, no,
You're
we thought they
starting
were
a war.
Japanese torpedo boats." And Great Britain,
Mhm.
"You thought they were what?" "Excuse
Can
me?"
you imagine the embarrassment that you were the leader of one of the world
You
powers
know what
like
I
Russia?
picture? Like, the representative, the commander of the Baltic fleet who had that conversation, I just picture that he was, like, super inexperienced, young, had no idea what he was talking about. He's like, "No, for real, we thought they were enemies." Like, just sticking
Mhm.
to his guns, you know? Oh, man. They had multiple incidents of friendly fire. One of the incidents of friendly fire that they had, was the Kamchatka. That name, no matter who tells this story, the name Kamchatka was like that ship was probably the biggest fuck up in the whole squadron.
Mhm.
Had to have been. But at one point, they were holding a funeral service for a sailor who had died, and the Kamchatka was responsible for the gun salute for the sailor's burial, and they fired directly into one of the other ships with live rounds.
Oh,
Ugh.
Oh. Still not, the craziest thing, so, maybe they used up all their bullets
not even close.
on the fishermen. But, black lung, Madagascar pets, those are 2 big things. So, multiple incidents of friendly fire, multiple incidents of panicking anytime they saw a boat. That's a Japanese torpedo boat. Let's shoot at each other and scream, run around in circles, quite literally, sailing in circles, shooting at each other, thinking that they were Japanese torpedo boats. So, this is all happening right around the time they get to Madagascar. It's been uneventful for a minute other than Kamchatka funeral saluting another funeral, and, they wanna provide some relief to the crew, and so they everybody gets a little shore leave in Madagascar, go do your thing, you know, go get yourself some booze, have a woman, get you a pet, don't bring back anything dangerous.
Right.
Right. You
Yeah.
just let loose a bunch of Northern Russian guys in the Horn of Africa.
Yep, and so they're out
Yep.
there, and they're looking for pets, and while they're looking for pets, the people running the ships, they realize that they have a problem. They're about to run out of coal. So, logically, instead of, making connections in that port, maybe using the finance lanes in that port to purchase coal at ports ahead. So it would be they're waiting for them when they arrived, any number of logistical maneuvers to make it work. They decided to gather all the coal that they could find, all the coal that they could purchase, and all the coal that they could purchase off other ships, even, and just store it wherever they had a nook or a cranny for a lump of coal to fit on any of their boats. So these sailors return from Madagascar with their pets to massive piles of coal, like in the halls, in the galley, in the bunks, up on the deck, massive piles of coal, like literally just everywhere.
No
And no
safety
one
standards.
Right.
thought about the fact that all that coal was gonna produce so much dust, and they literally had casualties. They lost people, many people died to black lung as if they were coal miners, and in the process
Jesus
of going
Christ.
insane because of the oxygen deprivation and the amount of coal dust in the air below decks on the ships, imagine being oxygen deprived, covered in soot, so you're just like all blacked out, your eyes are bloodshot, and you find out that some of your buddies who went into Madagascar to have a good time decided that the pets they would return to the ship with would be or include at least one venomous snake and a large crocodile. Both of those things promptly went missing while still alive on the ship. The snake was found hanging from some guns when it bit an officer in the face. So I'm sure
Jesus Christ.
I'm sure that
I don't remember hearing that
yeah,
detail. Holy
that is
shit.
the
Yeah,
thing that happened.
I don't remember
Um,
it being bit in the face, but I remember the snake and the crocodile for sure.
oh yes, yep, many other
I
things.
also seem to remember that one or more sailors bought a large quantity of cigarettes
Yes,
and
fires.
brought them and handed them out in an attempt to boost morale. and they were actually all laced with opium.
Yes. So they had opium cigarettes, uh, venomous snakes and crocodiles running loose on coal-laden ships, and, these guys are smoking opium-laced cigarettes to calm their nerves, and, somebody
Yeah, so you're
them
high on
target
opium,
fire.
afraid that you're gonna die of, either being eaten by an alligator on the ship, not if you fall off the ship or out of the
Just,
ship,
if you fall out of your bunk.
while laying well, you're not actually laying on your bunk, are you? You're laying on a pile of coal that's on your
That's
bunk.
true. Yeah. Yep. So
That sounds
so
like a great time.
many things left out, but that is the picture basically as they're, like, approaching Japan, and they're approaching Japan, and they're like, "Hey, wait a minute, like, this is it. We're coming into the battle. Like, hey, we better get some target practice, right?" Because they remember all the friendly fire incidents and all those. So they get a vessel, and they put a big old line on it, and they put another vessel behind it to use as target practice. And so they're towing this vessel, and the other ships are shooting at it. And the only ship that got hit was the ship that was towing the target. And the target itself was never hit. And that was the only like practice run they had before they were like, all right, okay, we're good. Full steam ahead into Japan's territory. So they get into Japan's territory. It's dark. They're
If I
cruising.
may, really quick, all the while that this is happening, the press is making it very publicly known how the journey is
Oh
going,
yeah, the world is
where
getting
they're
an
at.
update.
So, literally, the Japanese forces had months to prepare for the Baltic Fleet to get there.
Yep.
Yep.
So they sail into the Japanese waters. It's night, and they run into a boat. And heretofore, every other time they have seen a boat, they have said, Japanese torpedo boats, and either
And immediately fired on it.
open fire or run. They see this boat and they're like, that is not a Japanese torpedo boat. That is a Russian fishing vessel. And so they contact that vessel and they say, hey, watch out for all these Russian ships around you. We're sneaking up on the Japanese. To which the Russian fishing vessel, which was actually a Japanese torpedo boat, responded with great prejudice. And I think over 6,000 casualties ensued immediately. Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Oh, it was a massacre.
decimated. 4,000 casualties, I think it was, and maybe 6,000 wounded and missing. Uh,
And I can't say for sure, but since it was 1904, 1905, this incident also contributed to the Russian Revolution because they had lost so much faith in the Russian government
indeed.
over this.
Yes, indeed.
It wasn't the top contribution, but it was up there.
It was up there. It was high on the list. It definitely pushed him over the edge. So that's the very um abridged story of the Baltic Fleet and its nonsense.
And yeah, and just if you if you want to read more, I can only find a couple YouTube videos about it, but Mr. Ballin has a good one. There's a couple more, and there's a handful of articles out there, but it's not really as well known as it should be.
Yeah, no, this should be like studied in schools.
The I liked the video that I watched. It was from oh, who was it? I want to say it was like Blue Jay.
Oh
Was
yeah,
it
Blue
Blue Jay?
Jay does great videos. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and how he did it, it was like so comical. Like
Well,
I'm just
man,
dying
his videos
laughing,
are
just
funny.
driving down the road to my next job, just
Yeah,
laughing.
yeah. He's got that heavy sarcasm. I love it. But yeah. Oof. I don't know which would have been worse though. To be like imagine being an 18, 19-year-old kid that's actually got their head on straight. You come from a family of furniture makers in the heartland of Russia. You've never seen the ocean and some jackass picks you up out of nowhere, puts you on a boat, and instantly just from through the grapevine and hearing everything that's happening, you're like, nobody in charge here actually knows what the fuck they're doing. You know what I mean? How sad is that? That there were tons of
Right.
those guys who were like, they were out of their element. perfectly reasonable, perfectly smart, perfectly capable individuals who were thrust in this situation, and then once they got there, they realized that they were like, "Oh my god, we're being led by children." I don't know why I'm laughing, that's so fucking dark.
I can only imagine that that's the people like, that's, how people feel working under me half the time.
I don't
They're like, "Oh, this guy's dressed well, he seems professional," and then I open my mouth, and 2 minutes later, like, "Who the fuck let this guy run this shit?
oh,
This
oh.
dude just fucking rambled about Bigfoot to a stranger for 2 minutes."
It's easy to do though, Bigfoot's real.
So this sounds like a good segue for to hear from our sponsors.
Wondering what the future may have in store for you and your loved ones? Well, wonder no more with our new Don't Probe Me Bro Psychic Hotline. Will you get that new promotion? Buy a house? Find true love? Find out with a $19.99 deposit or save big with our monthly membership of only $29.99. Wow! Just call 1-800-328-7448. Don't wait, the future is calling. I'm looking through my Indianapolis notes right now, and by that, I mean, I Googled it.
The crazy thing about the Indianapolis that stuck out to me, and I guess before I researched it this time around, because I have a couple different times, um, and I don't know why it jumped out so much to me this time, was the gross negligence on behalf of the receiving port. Like the ship that the Indianapolis was headed to, had
Mhm,
received many distress calls after
mhm.
it was struck
Right.
and it had gone down. And during one of the calls, an officer was playing cards and just refused to take the call. Another one of the distress calls, the officer was drunk and literally just he took the call, was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, yeah," it was drunk, and then forgot to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And then I forget what one of the other ones
So there was
was.
another one,
Yeah,
and it was a distress call saying that they were a lone ship out in the Atlantic, and the initial thought was none of our ships would be without a formation. They wouldn't be out that far
they thought it was
alone.
a
So it's
setup.
obviously
Yeah,
a setup.
yep, they thought it was
And the reason that they were alone is because they were delivering classified nuclear bomb
Mhm.
materials that actually were later dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yep, yep, but that ship had actually been, like, super active through the war. It'd been part of a
Yeah.
lot of different things. Um, the biggest travesty of the whole thing, after the ship was sunk and the casualties in the water was the way that I think it was handled, uh, with culpability because the Captain McVeigh was the captain on the bridge at the time it was struck by 2 Japanese torpedoes. He was court-martialed because he had failed to steer the ship in a zigzag pattern, and it was standard procedure to steer the ship in a zigzag pattern if it was known that there were torpedo boats in the area, which it was not.
Mhm.
He had not been briefed on the presence of torpedo boats, and furthermore, he had been denied a request for a destroyer escort. He specifically asked to have a destroyer escort. They denied it, and then after it was sunk by torpedo boats, he was court-martialed and spent the majority of his life dealing with the fallout from that court martial and ultimately took his own life over that incident and the
Mhm.
fallout from the families of the victims. So that
And on top of that, from what I remember in previous videos I've watched and reading, n during his, like, court-martial proceedings, they actually had the admiral or the commander of the Japanese sub that
Yep.
had launched the torpedoes and sunk it, and even in his testimony,
So there's not
said he had fired so many torpedoes that zigzagging would not have saved anybody and done anything, but I guess during the testimony, it was mistranslated
Yep.
to say the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. He spoke on the pride of the Imperial Navy and said that it would have been impossible for any ship to not have been sunk in his sights in that situation. And
Right.
and I could be wrong, but I thought that rather than just poorly interpreted, the interpretation was deliberately muddled to keep faith in the U.S. military structure. Could be wrong. I thought I read that. But either way, the distress calls weren't responded to after it was struck by those torpedoes. McVeigh was not treated properly. He wasn't even exonerated of any wrongdoing until 1996. And I wish
Right, and it was a book report by,
a high
like, a
school
5th
student.
grader, I
Yeah,
think.
it was like a high school student or a fifth grader. I really should look up that kid's name and give him credit for it because he's the one that brought national attention to that case in 1996, and he's the one that
Mhm.
only because of that kid and the attention he brought, he got Captain McVeigh posthumously awarded the medals that he deserved. Um, but so yeah, he'd been denied a request for the destroyer escort. The drunken officers were playing cards. Those guys were never charged. The drunk officers that didn't respond to the stress calls, etc. Those guys never faced charges. That's ridiculous. Um, but I mean, the incident itself, the whole reason anyone had to face charges was because these guys were in the water for 4 days. It was on the
I think it was
fourth
4 days and 5
yeah,
nights.
the fourth day that they were spotted by a plane. The pilot of that seaplane actually put his plane down in the water and allowed as many of the stranded sailors to climb onto every surface of it that they could to have some refuge, so much so that he could not take off again. But by the time his distress call was being responded to and the searchlights were approaching, it was already nightfall. So it was the fifth night. Yeah, as
Mhm.
the rescue was coming underway. 300 sailors, I believe, perished in the initial
Mm,
strike by the torpedo, and then 900
right,
went into the water. And if I'm not
and only
mistaken, I was gonna
316
say, if I'm not mistaken, only
survived.
about 300 were rescued. And
Yeah,
but yeah, insane. The rescue though,
absolutely
4 days
wild.
in the water, for a lot of people, if you don't think about it, that probably doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but, um, we're talking extreme temperatures on both ends of the spectrum. During the day, it was boiling hot, just sitting in salt water. During the night, it was freezing cold. The ship had sunk, and the only food that they had was anything floating in the debris field, tins of potted meat and like soggy biscuit crackers. But the sharks and the dehydration. There was no fresh water to drink, and sharks swarmed the wreck for all 4 of those days and all 5 of those nights, just plucking off those sailors one by one.
And fun fact, the main character in the original Jaws was a member
What yeah,
of
was a
the
survivor.
USS Indianapolis.
Yep.
Exactly.
Mm,
It felt a little, tense. I wanted to lighten the mood a little.
yeah.
It's a good movie.
Imagine that, that's crazy, though, I can't the resilience of an individual to go through something like that, spend 4 days and 5 nights in shark-infested waters, watching everyone else around you get turned into a snack bite, and,
Mhm.
you just go
And then you go
Jaws.
on to make the movie Jaws.
Right.
Good for him.
Like, "Hey, who knows about how
Too
scary
much?
sharks
Sorry.
are? Hey, we got a guy."
I just like having been in the military, like for something to go on like that long, like
Without
yeah,
any
nowadays that would not
idea
happen.
that they're there. No.
Yeah, and the action that Indianapolis had seen before was all in the Pacific theater, which we know from naval warfare history was quite active. It had previously survived a kamikaze strike, and it participated in the bombardment of Iwo Jima.
Wait, I think earlier I said the Atlantic Ocean. I would like to redact that and, pretend I said the Pacific.
Oh.
I don't remember.
No, I think I did. Whoops. Oh, fun idea, totally unrelated. How do you guys feel about censoring, curse words by and I know that this is gonna add a lot to Josh's plate because well, we make it so easy on him already. Uh, we'll all just record in separate audio us saying random words. Maybe we'll get a random word generator, and we'll all just make little clips, and then he can come through and edit that in over us saying "fuck" by saying,
Fraud.
like Candle.
Go doorknob yourself. Like what?
Right.
I like that.
I was thinking of that the other day. I thought it'd be funny.
Sounds like a terrible idea. How about you take up editing?
Or just different random
You
sounds.
do-
Whack.
if you do all the editing and leave that part to me, I'll do it. Let me do the censoring end.
That would be fun. I like that idea a lot.
Maybe on like
Yeah.
a special episode, but not every time.
No, we should do it every time. I think so. We've barely fucking swore in this one.
God damn it.
You're just adding more work to yourself, bud.
No, I'm not doing it. I might do one for like I said, a special episode, but not every time. No.
I mean, dude, you're like the computer guy. You could probably just hotkey it so you could just add it in real quick.
No, but I'd have to like, all right, so first I'd have to listen to it all the way through, edit, cut all the dead space, and then
I don't want to hear your nerd bullshit. All right, just do it.
and then not only that, so I have to import the file of the random words being said, and then I have to split the track and then split the track again with the new word and then move that to the specific spot and then match them up. And no, fuck that.
Would it take longer than it would for you just to describe it just now?
Oh, for sure. Because then it'd be like, how many curse words?
Well, what if just per episode we all had one word that we would replace it
That
with?
would be a lot easier.
Right, not every fucking curse word needs to have its own unique word. Like, oh, cool, we swore 364 times. Let me pull up 364 unique words that are not curse words. Just for this one episode, we did an hour of research collectively for the episode, and we did 18 hours of editing.
Little lopsided.
Little lopsided, but yeah, I think we should do that.
I like it. I like the idea.
And we'll just do, Josh says a word, you say a word, I say a word, and we'll just use that.
That was a big old yawners.
I was so fucking tempted to be like, ooh, big yawn. Anytime my fucking 8-month-old daughter yawns, that's what I do. And now apparently it's just ingrained. Someone yawned. Oh, big yawn. It's like a fucking reflex now.
That's like me when I stand up with my kids, I'll just start bouncing.
Right, even though they're like 8.
Yeah, still. She asked me to pick her up, I'll just instinctively start bouncing.
And then
I will do
pat
that
on the back.
sometimes. I'll do that sometimes and like sway back and forth.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
What?
That whole editing thing. Like I said, it'd be cool to do. Or
You're just saying that because it's you doing it. If it was a different podcast doing it, you'd be like, that was cool. I like that. But now you're just looking at it through like, fuck, this just became a job.
exactly. It already is a job just to edit this.
I think it's a fucking full-time job just to corral me and Andrew.
Oh, for sure. I'm getting like so much gray hair just like trying to organize things. Like, hey, are we meeting up?
I tried.
I lost power. Fuck. Out of all the times, like that was the most inconvenient time.
Fucking tell me about it. All right. So Consumers Energy literally sent us a note 2 weeks before that saying we have it was like a month before that, a planned power outage to upgrade the system so you don't lose power as often. So we lost power intentionally for, I think it was 12 hours for them to update the system. 2 weeks later, that fucking happened, and we didn't have power for 8 hours. And it was literally, I was so fucking annoyed. It was like this long day at work. It was Tuesday. And I get home. We had all just started playing one video game, which is the first time we've all been able to play a game together because we just bought a bunch of controllers and we're playing this game. And I get home and I'm just like, let's play video games. And my hand touched the controller. Literally, the moment it touched it, the power went out. I was like, what the fuck?
That's diabolical. That's not okay.
Dude, it was just the worst fucking timing. I was like, we got like an hour before Josh comes over and Andrew's online, and we have enough time to play this really quick, and boom. Fuck. And they kept fucking telling us, like, oh, it'll be on in like an hour, and then like you'd look at a different thing and it'd be like, oh, okay. They said 9, and we didn't even see crews arrive until 9:30, and then it didn't come on until
2 in the morning.
4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So hopefully that doesn't happen in the winter.
Randomly,
'Cause I will-
randomly, all your lights are on in the middle of the night. You're like, oh Jesus!
Right. I think that is what happened too. I woke up in the morning and I was like, what the fuck? I know that it sounds petty. It really does, but we had lost power for like minutes at a time, like 3 times before that. And I think one of the biggest annoyances about it is resetting the clock on the oven.
Oh, I hate resetting the clocks.
Yeah. Yep.
Dude, and it seemed like I'll put it off for a couple days and I'll just get more and more annoyed by it. And in that span of time, it would be I'd reset the clock a couple days after we lost power and then we'd lose power. So it like became this weird like, cool, so if I reset the clock, we're gonna fucking lose power again.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that your oven doesn't just update by itself.
Yeah, I mean, we bought it secondhand.
I don't know. I just feel like everything these days is all fucking smart and shit.
Right. I was just watching a video. I think you can play Skyrim on the Samsung refrigerators now.
I think I saw that.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can like do enough fucking around to it that you can do that.
It does not surprise me at all. I mean, literally, someone just
No.
put a CPU in the refrigerator and programmed it to do refrigerator things. So if you're smart enough, you can probably just make it,
Well,
make
it's
you
got the
pizza and stuff.
touchpad whole thing, and you can surf the internet on it and like
yeah.
look up recipes
yeah, so
while
you
you're
could
cooking
definitely-
and all that. So
You might have to hook up like an external hard drive or something, but yeah, you could probably do it.
yeah, talking about the Russians, that was funny. But then when it's like our own people, it's like, okay, that's kind of, especially like me being prior military, it kind of strikes a nerve a little bit. Like they need to be brought to justice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. I mean, and I don't think that those guys ever were the ones that were super negligent over the Indianapolis, but the amount, and I was never in the military or anything like that, and the amount that it upset me to hear that Captain McVeigh wound up taking his own life over that was just, oh man, that is awful.
Yeah.
That is just awful. He survived that and did the best he could by his men, and still was guilted into taking his own life. Crazy. So what I'm looking up right now on the subject of the Samsung refrigerator is if you look up on YouTube the 1956 Frigid Air refrigerator icebox commercial. It is a vintage commercial from 1956, obviously. But you tell me that you would not buy that refrigerator. I don't know if it's the marketing from the 50s. I
Wait,
think it's the
so-
machine itself.
Say that again. So 1956 Samsung, what?
Frigid Air refrigerator icebox commercial. 1956
Oh.
Frigid Air refrigerator icebox commercial. It's like a 2-minute, 15-second commercial, and the woman goes through and explains all the functions of it.
Black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I'm mad I don't have this refrigerator. I'm mad they don't even make it like this anymore.
Could this go on any slower?
It's building drama.
That's 1956. There's no reason to be so fucking rushed.
Yeah, this was before everybody had ADD. Initial complaint,
Yeah.
freezer's too small.
Oh
Dude, you can bitch about the ice maker, asshole. It's 1956.
Fuck you, I'll bitch about what I want. Oh wow. I take it back. She opened the fridge.
Built and backed by General Motors. I love it. Oh, I love it. Man, there's nothing wrong with that fridge. The crisper on the freaking door, that the whole thing comes off and you can set it on the
Wow.
counter and get your produce out and then just pick it up and put it back in. You don't have to rummage through the
Oh
door.
my god.
Why is this not in modern fridges?
That's what I'm saying.
Why the
You guys
fuck
are
hasn't
talking
anyone
about
learned
playing
from this?
Skyrim, and I'm like, you know what we need? We need the Frigidaire refrigerator icebox. Fuck Samsung.
1956.
And it didn't need anything. That was it. The fridge was perfected right there. The residential refrigerator was perfected right there.
I completely agree, but I bet right now, if you were to plug this in your house, it would double your electric bill.
I highly doubt it. I highly
You think
doubt
so?
it. I highly doubt it.
Dude, what the? Okay. I mean, I have a fridge that I don't need to do any of that for ice, but I like the rest of it.
That's like the only thing is it the automatic ice maker as opposed to the manual ice maker. That's the only.
I will say I don't like having an automatic ice maker.
Yeah.
It just fucking scares the shit out of all of us every once in a while, just dropping ice out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
it's like popcorn going off in your freezer.
Yeah, and then it makes a weird like peeing squirrely noise to refill it. The first few times it happened, like me and Libby just like stopped and we're like, what was that? And then we're like, Oh,
Yeah,
no.
because ours has like a little like thingy that you like flip up or down, but like the off position is up. So like if you're trying to move things in and out of the freezer, you'll bump it and knock it down, and then we'll be couple hours go by, then all of a sudden you just like what the hell?
I do picture, like, I don't know. It felt like we were cavemen living in the modern world just because we're like, we just bought a new fridge and we're sitting on the couch and all of a sudden just ice falls out of the ice maker and we're just like, like, big box makes scary noise.
I want to know how much it costs.
Right now,
No, in 1956.
probably $25. No? You don't think so?
But kind of sort of on that same topic or
Trying to
subject,
find it.
so we were looking at getting new refrigerators and stuff, or refrigerator, freezer, yada yada. Um, and then we came across one where it was like a vintage looking, but it's all modernized. And I was like, I so want that, but they're tiny.
Yeah. I mean, I just pulled one up trying to 1956 model. It's $500 and it's probably half the size of a normal fridge
Yeah.
now. No, we were looking at those too, and there's a couple that I was looking at, but they're fucking super expensive and but they look so cool. But then you have to go through the trouble of retro designing the rest of your fucking kitchen.
Says that the 1956 model is only about 35% less efficient than modern refrigerators.
Jeez.
Damn.
Which 35% is, like, you would notice that on your
Substantial.
electric bill, I guess.
Mhm.
It'd throw an extra $10 a month or maybe less than that. But I was expecting more,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot more, because like you can still buy one of those fridges for $600 right now, and it's only 35% less efficient if it's in working condition than like a fucking $5,000 Skyrim kitchen piece.
And you're not wrong on the total price. You're pretty close. I think those are like 4 grand. I think as far as fridges go, that probably is the most useless feature, second only to the glass front that you tap on so you can see inside the fridge without opening it.
That's so dumb.
Right.
Dude,
Yeah.
what the
Just
fuck?
open fridge.
Or no, I'm sorry, that's second. The other one is third. The first one is my daughter fucking loves the one at Home Depot every time because they put a little monkey inside and they close the doors and you just have to press the screen and it has a camera on the inside. So you press the screen and it displays an inside view via camera of the contents of the fridge on a screen on the outside of
What
the
is the
fridge.
point of that? There has to be a point other than being in the
So if
room
you're
separated
stoned and
by
you walk up to the
curtains.
refrigerator, you can stare at it for a half an hour trying to figure out what you're gonna eat, like,
Like,
without
if
wasting
that
any
was
energy.
you can look at it while
No,
you're in the
that
freezer and see if, like, "Hey, do I have milk?" Pull up the app and look in your fridge. Is it like that? Because what is the point if it doesn't do that?
I think I would really love for it to be like they had stoners who were kinda out of their minds in mind, but I'm pretty sure, 99.9% sure that it is specifically for the people who are so concerned about energy efficiency that they bought a Prius and they recycle everything and try to erase their carbon footprint, which
Oh,
is
man.
quite sad 'cause, it doesn't cost that much to open your refrigerator.
I love it when I find those people, and then you can just tell them about all the ways they're destroying the environment because it matters to them.
Yeah, sweet lithium battery, what happens when they're done? Where do you put them?
Yeah. Yeah. Go out to Iowa and see all the farmers out there right now that are dealing with the huge hassle of these wind turbine farms where,
Oh, yeah.
like, they made a deal with the devil. Basically, these companies, energy companies come along, we'll pay you X amount of money, blah, 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 just sign on the dotted line here, there, and where, and we'll just put up this thing on your property and you're no liability for it. Well, one of them goes derelict, the company shows up, tears the whole thing down, and just leaves it laying in the field, like metal, explosives,
Holy shit.
and oil, hydraulic, just everywhere, and they're growing food, you
Are
know
there
what I
actually
mean?
are there
And
actual reports of them leaving explosives?
yes, yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yes, the remnants of the explosives used to detonate the tower, and these farmers are out there, like, trying to pick it up because it's acres of land now with this fallen down wind turbine
What
that
the
they can't
fuck?
farm. you know? It's completely destroyed, and they're out there, like, trying to clean it up, and there's remnants of explosives, there's remnants of oil and hydraulic fluid, and we're not talking about, like, little splashes of oil and hydraulic fluid, we're talking about a wind turbine that looks, you
Yeah,
know,
like the
300
crank
feet
seal
tall.
will leak, and then just like all that oil would contaminate the whole area. Like wind
Yeah,
turbines
and
are
literally all they do to bring them down is they get up there and they do a controlled demolition to, blow the blades off of it, and then they do a controlled demolition at the base to fell it like a tree. Then they
Holy
walk
shit.
away, and after that, it's the landowner's problem.
Dude, they really do. I'm watching a video right now of them doing that.
Yep.
That's wild. They don't
Yeah.
even take care of it when they're done.
Nope. They leave it there. It's the landowner. Imagine being that farmer with that all out there.
Cool, I'm glad you gave me 50 grand for you to put up a wind turbine on my property. Now I have to spend 50 grand to get professionals to come take this fucking thing away.
Yeah, not to mention, like, the damage to the land itself in that space, you know?
Do you think you could scrap it, like, legally?
There's one guy or one program I've heard about recently where this guy is trying to recycle wind turbine blades, and his process is really, really unique. Um, but they just what happens most of the time now is if that farmer hires a company to come clean that up and take it away, they have these massive fields where they chop it all into like relatively uniform sized pieces and they just lay them in these fields and they bury them. And it's like thousands and thousands of acres and just hundreds of tons of material that will never break down,
What the fuck?
just buried below the surface. But this other guy that's recycling them, I read about it a long time ago, and I forgot what he's doing with them, but he's, like, shredding them down into a material and repurposing the material he makes out of them for something else, and I
Ooh.
forgot what that product is.
I have a guess. Does he shred it down into fine particles for the CIA to then dump over the, US into the air?
chemtrails.
That's
No
probably more
chemtrails.
plausible than anything else. But I wanna say he was, like, turning it into fuel or something like that.
Yeah, for jet engines to fly over the US and spread that.
Recycling wind turbine blades into no, excuse me?
I fucking love that I'm skeptical of crystals and acupuncture, but I'm like, yeah, fucking chemtrails are real, duh.
You've gotta be kidding me.
What?
Wind turbine blades could be recycled into gummy bears, scientists say.
What the fuck?
Researchers design composite resin for blades that can be broken down to make new products, including sweets. The next generation of wind turbine blades can be recycled into gummy bears at the end of their service, scientists have said.
And you wonder why
Researchers at Michigan State University have made a composite resin for the blades by combining glass fibers with a combining glass fibers with a plant-derived polymer and a synthetic one. Once the blades have reached the end of their lifespan, the materials can be broken down and recycled to make new products, including turbine blades and chewy sweets.
My god, the
Yep.
world is such a beautiful place.
like no wonder we all are getting fucking cancer and shit. Like
Yeah.
But you know what? Nobody's starving, alright?
No, there's just a food recall every other day. You
Right,
notice
you know?
that?
yeah,
Like
There's
every
been a
3
lot
years, they're like,
lately,
10
yeah.
people died from listeria over here. I'm like, who's in charge?
Right. But to be fair, alright, 10 people for feeding, I don't know, how many people live in just this state?
uh,
Are you talking about feeding people on just gummy bears?
No, I just mean, like, if you're pumping out a mass amount of produce and 10 people die from listeria, every 6 months, you know? You still fed a lot of
Um,
people.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
know what the
that's true.
success rate on what the percentage of that is, but
What
it's
the
gotta be pretty good.
industry's standard of fatal listeria cases is? Because you know
Right.
that there's an industry standard for everything.
Yeah. I wanna know
Like,
what
how
their
many people died
allowance
from work?
is.
That's fine.
What's their allowable amount of annual deaths?
Right, what's the tolerance before somebody starts looking?
Uh,
So right now it says the repurposing of blades is used as structural elements in new structures such as bike sheds, noise barriers, and pedestrian footbridges. Uh,
ooh.
see, like that could be
the
useful, but like fucking gummy bears, like
right, and cement production. The
Gummy bears are
fiberglass
fucking useful too, alright?
can be used to make cement, which reduces carbon dioxide emissions and water consumption. So you make cement with less water and less carbon dioxide out of them. The problem is that we've just been chucking them in like their little own landfills forever.
It works with nuclear waste. Why wouldn't it work with that?
All the recycling and repurposing methods, most wind turbine blades are still disposed of in landfills. This is because recycling and repurposing methods are currently limited and expensive. No, I don't buy that.
No.
You can't tell me it's expensive. You can't tell me it's more expensive.
Haul it to a landfill.
I don't know.
Right,
I
you
can I can
more
believe it.
expensive for somebody to, like, set up. How could we not have a company just set up, and then when that happens to those farmers out in Iowa, instead of the turbine company coming out and demoing the thing, they just call a third party, and the third party is the liaison between the Monster Energy company and between the farmers, and they just work to make everybody happy. You know what I mean?
Well, I
That
think
that's like a whole industry. You could get state grants for that. You could have government funding for that. You would receive federal funding even for that, especially if they had done it sometime in the past 4 years when the funding for the Green Party and for a lot of environmentally friendly things was flowing free and clear. But
I
there's
think the thing there is they're probably using that green money for the grants and things to put up more wind turbines so that
yeah,
they can say,
you're
look at what we're doing. We're building more wind energy.
yeah, we're producing more gigawatts or
Right.
whatever.
And I think that I'm speaking out of turn and not informed at all. So I guess that's not too far from the norm. I think the issue is that there's no industry
Nobody
that's
cares.
dying to buy dead wind turbines, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just because they haven't figured out how to mass produce something out of them, you know what I
Right. And as
mean?
soon as there's a demand for it, people will be fucking cutting it down when it's still running.
Right. Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, dude, if there's that much money in it, I think maybe we shouldn't incriminate ourselves, but that could be a good chunk of money to get the podcast going.
Welcome to 2025. We no longer scrap copper out of sprinkler systems. We bring down wind turbines.
There's a couple right down the road, man. I don't know. I got a
Oh,
pickup truck
man.
that'll probably bring it down, right?
Doubtful.
There is? Where's
Well,
there a wind turbine?
Right.
I mean, it's like an hour and a half away, but there's a bunch of
Yeah,
there's like
they're not
fucking
far.
there's like
They're
60 of them. They're not gonna notice that one of them's missing.
Turbine number 7 just went offline.
No, I doubt that they have anything that technical, right? Right? They
No, they do.
just
They
throw
do.
them
Well,
up.
like the ones in
Yep, yep.
Ohio, like there's like just rows and rows and
That's what I'm
rows.
saying. That's what I'm saying, dude. There's no way that they're gonna
My,
notice one's gone.
I know a guy that used to work for their company, and, they trained him up in, like, climbing and harnesses and all the safety and whatnot, and then they just started shipping him all over the world. I mean, they were sending him to Thailand, he was going to
Jeez.
Mexico, Gulf of Mexico,
That would be a pretty sweet
all the way
job
down
though.
to the ocean,
Yeah.
and all they did was they trained him up on, ultrasound equipment.
Really?
He'd go up there, climb up on top of these turbines. He's got all sorts of cool pictures up on top of them. But he just go up there with like ultrasound equipment and ultrasound the turbine. It would tell him if there's any like stress cracks or fractures or anything like that. And then they just write up a service ticket or whatever for the pros and then move on. Just inspections after inspections after inspection.
That's wild.
But yeah, he said it's pretty crazy. Sent me a picture one time. He was in a field in Texas. All you could see was just wind turbines every direction. And he
That's
gets
great
down
for the local bird populations too.
right. He gets down to the truck and his ink pen, just like a clear Bic pen with a cap, was melted to the dashboard. That's how hot it was.
Oh, geez. My main concern here, a genuine concern, is that we have so many wind turbines in one area that it contributes to speeding up the spin of the Earth and days get shorter. What
Or
do we do then?
we just accidentally put enough wind turbines in one place to give us a like little ass propeller, and we just like poop.
Right. Or actually, because there'd be so much drag, it would actually slow the Earth down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Totally feasible with, that amount. My main point, all I'm saying, a tree falls down in my yard, I don't notice for like a year or two, you know?
Right.
Right. Just saying. All right. That's all. Can we add like a little disclaimer at the end of that, and we'll just speed it up like we did in the commercial of just like this
That
is
was
just satirical.
that was quite the tangent on
Wind turbines.
wind
Right, like
turbines.
that's the only
We
tangent
went
we
off
went
the
on.
talking smack. I think it actually started talking smack about the lithium batteries and electric cars, and then
Yeah.
I just digressed wholly into the wind
Even though we went
turbine.
off the fucking rails like 10 times, this is way a million times more on topic than our original 2
Oh,
episodes.
for sure. Yeah.
Like way better. I'm glad we're getting the energy back too. Like we're working
Yeah.
through that like awkward, this is kind of weird again phase, and we're gonna start being wildly fucking ridiculous.
Oh
I
yeah.
miss that. I miss that feeling.
It just sucks because it's the end of the day, work day.
Right. Yeah.
None of our schedules
Mhm.
align where like we could actually take a 2-3 hour chunk and be like on a weekend. Like it's just
Let's
not
do
gonna
this. Yeah.
happen.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, chug a couple Celsiuses, maybe not a couple, 2 max. I think that's what it says on the can.
Is it?
And, you know,
Uh,
I just miss the feeling of finishing the recording, calming down a little bit, and being like, I probably shouldn't have said at least 90% of that shit. That's a good feeling. I love that. And then listening to it again and getting cringy and weird, but, you
I'm more
know,
like
it's something I
I'm
can be
more like,
proud of.
I'll hear about it if I need to.
What's that?
I'm more like, I'll hear about it if I need to.
Right, yeah.
Is it wet? Is it stinky? Is it slimy, grimy, and whiny? Slap some of Bud's butter on that belt. No more squeaking. Call 1-666-autorepair.com.
Do you guys know what a quantum oscillator is?
Yeah, it's that new I bought one recently. It's that new prostate stimulator, right?
Oh, well, it finds things. Could
It sure
probably use
does.
it.
Yeah, finds them real good.
But no, so the thing that was interesting about this case is that so many people have brought attention to it that this dude invented a machine to help him find this girl. And it's called a quantum oscillator. So the concept behind it is that everything in the universe gives off a unique frequency, and that if you tune to that frequency, the quantum oscillator is a machine that has two antennas. It has an output antenna and it has a receiving antenna. So you program the oscillator to the frequency of what the thing is that you want to find, and you just start walking around with it, and it just like throws these frequencies out, and if you match the frequency that you're sending with something in your environment, it resonates with that frequency and sends it back to the oscillator, and basically just beep 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 beep, beep. Like isn't it, it's crazy. So they scanned her baby teeth with this quantum oscillator, and then they went to her house, started at the front door, and followed the thing. And it went the exact path where accounts were like, "Hey, we saw her here at 6:30 in the morning. We saw her here at 6:30. We saw her here." And then it picked up a blood trail that no one had previously found. And this is 3 months after she went missing. It's not like some kind of a sniffer, like an olfactory. Like
Mm.
they had dogs in conjunction with the oscillator, with the quantum oscillator. But it's
That's
three
crazy.
months after her
What
disappearance,
the
and
fuck?
yeah, I mean, they tracked it all the way to, like, the big question now is they found, bone fragments in coyote scat, but the local sheriff's department that's handling that specific case refuses to foot the bill or find a way to foot the bill to extract DNA from that bone to
Mhm.
verify that it is in fact her. But I was like, "Man, I need to build me a quantum oscillator."
Please tell me that it just looks like like 2 sticks connected like a Y.
Like divining rods. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know what the device itself looks like, but
If it doesn't look like that, I'm gonna be very disappointed. Just some fucking guy with a bunch of detectives following him with just 2 sticks fucking
a couple of dogs.
I was gonna say that kind of makes me think of when I went and got acupuncture for my allergies. So my sister's father-in-law, he's like huge into acupuncture, and basically what he was doing is kind of sort of similar to find out what I'm allergic to. So like for instance, like I'm allergic to pine trees. So you take the one rod, you hold it, and then he takes the other rod and then he touches like a crystal that resonates with pine trees, that frequency. And then like he does this thing with like the chakra type deal, like I raise my arm up in the air and then he'll touch that frequency, and then if I'm resistant to it then I'm not allergic to it. But like if my body's weak to it and he can push my arm down, then it's like, okay, you're allergic to that. So then it goes line by line, find out everything that I'm allergic to, and then
Process of elimination. Yeah.
yep, and then I hold this jar with all those crystals in it, and then he goes and does the acupuncture, and then I'll sit there for a half an hour with the needles in me, and then like the next 24 hours my allergies are just like amplified by like a million. If anything like I'm allergic to it, it's like amplified. I'm drooling, snot, rubbing eyes, etc. And then like the next day for I don't know, like 2 weeks, I'm immune to everything. And then I went back for a second treatment, and then same thing happened. He already knew all the things that I was allergic to, so we just redid it. And then
Probably had
it's
like a chart.
been, yeah. So now it's been, I would say, 6 months, and I've been pretty much allergy free since.
Wow.
We should start a
That's pretty
cult.
crazy.
We can come up with some shit like that.
Like I was never like, okay,
build a-
acupuncture is stupid. I don't believe in it. And then having gone through it myself, I'm like, I'm a firm believer.
I don't know that I was a little skeptical. I wasn't like, yeah, that's not a thing. I figured that with most alternative sources of medicine, and the thing that I think we forget as humans is like modern medicine, modern pharmacology, pharmaceuticals, and all these chemicals have been around for a drop in the bucket in the existence of man.
Mhm.
And we've been treating things in different ways. And yeah, millions of people died. We had plagues that wiped out massive portions of the population. I'm not saying it's all better than modern science, but I do firmly believe that practices like those are rooted in real science. That, you know, and maybe we lived in a more mystic world as humans before. Other people have said that. And I think that that sort of medicine was more common because acupuncture saved my life too. I was very skeptical about it. Severe back injury, and a very close friend of mine, his brother's an acupuncturist in the local area, and he pretty much set me up out of the kindness of his heart because my insurance at the time didn't cover it, and
Mhm.
he set me up in a way I could make it happen 3 times a week, and I had bulging herniated discs in my low back, and same thing. It was, you know, kind of like that resonance, that frequency, but for him it was more of like treating inflammation and stuff. You know, our issues are totally different from your allergies to me having like physically damaged the structure of my spine. And like, I'm not saying that it was a cure all, it cured those issues. You can't, you know, you can't cure a herniated disc or a bulging
Right.
disc really without surgery, but it was at a point where I was dragging a leg behind me, like, to walk, just dragging a leg behind me, could barely Mike seen me in some of those really bad times,
Yeah.
maybe not the worst of it, but maybe though, yeah. Uh, I was also way heavier then too, and the acupuncture really, really helped, but the same thing you were describing is that he just had all these different resistances and pulls and, like, just kinda feel and test out how your body reacted to different stimuli before he just, you know, it's not like he just came in there and was like, "Oh, this pattern looks good, and let me chuck these needles in, lay there for 10 minutes and relax, you'll be fine." It wasn't like that at all.
See,
Right.
I didn't realize that acupuncture was anything other than like, oh, I read this chart and I put a fucking needle right here and a needle right here and then done.
No,
Oh, no,
there's
it's
a
so
whole
involved.
science behind it.
I got, like, drunk the first time.
Hmm.
Like, I yeah, like,
Well, now
he
I want to
warned
do
me.
it.
He warned me. He's like, you might feel, you know, almost,
Euphoric.
intoxicated to a point, you might and then when you start coming down from that, you might feel sick to your stomach,
Is it like
and
a
have a
calming intoxication or is it going to induce a panic attack in me?
I'd
Dude,
say
I
calming.
thought no, for me, I thought I slammed 4 shots of whiskey.
Oh, yeah,
Like
let's go get some
like,
acupuncture,
I'm
boys.
dead serious, but he just said it was just about, like, the amount of problems that you have in your muscles and your joints and all that, and they'll lock
Mhm.
up and they'll start to build, certain kinds of acids that are detrimental to your tissues and this and that and the other thing, and then when he went through and hit me, I don't even remember how much he loaded me up how many needles he loaded me up with the first time, but, I mean, I was laying face down, so it was all along, like, the back of me, my arms and hands, but, I mean, I was covered head to toe,
I only
and,
had I think I only had 8.
oh, it was over 40, hands down,
Jeez.
every
Now
time, like 3
now
times a week.
I really need to learn more about this. I'm gonna buy a book on it, put it on the shelf, and never touch it.
No, you should just
That's
get an
usually what happens.
audiobook. You just get an audiobook.
Right. But
But
same
no,
with
that so when
audiobooks.
he pulled the needles, it, like, released all those toxins and those bad acids and those things that had been locked up in my joints or whatever, that's the way it was explained to me, and I just got, like, this head rush of just stuff, and then I had a cold the next day that lasted, like, 6 to 12 hours that he had warned me about, and then the day following was, like, $1,000,000, and it would only last, given the severity of the issues with my spine at the time, it would probably only last, like, 4 or 5 days, at most if I didn't go back, again the same week. But after doing that for a few months, like, the duration of time that the effects lasted just grew and grew and grew and grew.
Huh.
Yeah, that's kinda like the same thing, like, so I did the one treatment, and then it was 2 weeks later, went back again, and then I've been, like I said, pretty much allergy free, and then since I work outside, springtime allergies, fall time allergies. So, he said, before, like, spring really hits, come back, do another treatment, and then that should we'll see how it really does it. Because I did my first treatment, like, halfway through the fall allergy season, so, like, it was kinda, like, already on its come down part of it, so but
Mhm. Had you already been using, like, antihistamine type medication all the way through the season as well?
so before, yes, I'd be doing Claritin, Zyrtec, Flonase, all the things to, like, just try to survive the day.
Mhm.
But then since the treatment, I haven't touched nothing, and I've been pretty much good. Like, I might sneeze here and there, or my eye will get itchy from here and there, but, like, not like it was before.
Mhm. Not that scratchiness behind your tits. I can't breathe.
Yeah.
Well,
Alright, but I think I'm good to wrap this up if you guys are.
yeah, I gotta get these kids taken care of.
Yeah. That was a
Yeah,
good one, though.
so
I'm really happy with that. That turned out
was
really
a good
good.
one. I still had a whole page of notes on the
Yeah.
Titanic too.
And I would no, for sure, and I would really like to we can splice this one up a little bit because I'd really love to do a little bit more research into the experience of surviving those 4 or 5 days in the water for the USS Indianapolis. Go through, like, eyewitness testimony, survivor testimony, and, like, dive into that because that's some of the wildest shit there is.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
can just interject it in there. I mean, the quality of the mic stays the same fucking every time, so
Right.
Andrew just needs
Um,
to not lean. Yeah.
past it. Yeah. It's like trying to fall off the table I have it on. I gotta get a better setup going. 2 other cases or things that, we could bring up or as, like, mini bits in an episode or talk about just in other episodes I found interesting. The Ohio outdoorsman killer, and that
oh,
would just be a serial killer episode, but it's exactly what it sounds like. The dude was just obsessed with murdering people who were enjoying the outdoors in
Jesus.
Ohio, and it's not that old of a case, it's really not. And it's very, very intriguing, and interesting. And then the
Oh
other
my
big
god.
one is, Webb's Bait Farm disaster. And Webb's Bait Farm was just like a little fishing tackle place that raised worms for fishing bait. And there was an explosion that happened there. And no one, at the time that it happened, no one was like really sure what like why an explosion of that magnitude would take place on a bait farm, and that is a very interesting story that unfolded in the early '80s. We could cover.
We could get into the bathhouse massacre in Michigan.
Oh,
Did you ever hear about that?
mm-mm.
It was it was like early 1900s,
Okay.
and it was in Bath, Michigan, which I believe is up north. Kind of maybe between Big Rapids and Mackinac kind of area. And
Okay.
it was just this disgruntled towns guy. I think he had an issue with the township or something, but he loaded up an elementary school with explosives
Oh wow.
and set them off and killed, like, I don't know, a fucking ton of people.
What an asshole.
And then he showed up after the explosion to confront the I don't know if it was the principal, but he showed up in his truck and called the guy over to the car and had explosives in the car, and as soon as the guy leaned in the window, he set him off and killed both of them.
Oh wow. Yeah. Webb's bait farm wasn't as sinister as all that. It really was a tragic disaster.
Yeah, maybe Bath School Disaster, also known as the Bath School Massacre, was a series of violent attacks perpetrated by Andrew Koa upon the Bath Consolidated School in Bath Charter Township, Michigan, United States, May 18, 1927. The attack killed 38 children and 6 adults and injured at least 58 other people.
And what was the motivation behind this?
I don't remember, but I think that it was an issue with the township or a tax. I think it was tax related.
Yeah, it's just north of Lansing.
Mm. So the 1927
Yeah.
Killdozer incident.
Yeah. But I remember listening to another podcast on it, and they basically talked about, like, did you ever see the It movie?
The new one?
The
No.
newer one? It kind of resembles a scene out of that, but it like firsthand accounts of like body parts stuck in the tree outside the school kind of thing.
Yeah, that's Webb's bait farm was like that. It was pretty bad. I forget I didn't write down the dimensions of the explosion at Webb's bait farm, but it was like a military sized bomb. Like
Oh,
it was massive. And I'll just give a little spoiler right now. We don't have to keep this part in if we don't want to, but it was an illegal fireworks operation that he was running on his farm,
jeez.
and it ignited when he wasn't there. But it was like his mom, his wife, his like everybody that was there, the 11 that were killed in the blast were all his closest friends and family. Like his brother, cousin, like literally all of them. And it was that way. It was just, I mean, body parts found hundreds of yards away and shit because
Mhm.
they were manufacturing illegal M80s in a barn with zero safety protocols.
Jeez.
Zero at a bait farm. But yeah, 1983 when it went off like a friggin', you know, 2-ton bomb, they're like,
Jesus.
what the hell? That's probably a huge exaggeration. That was the other truck I recently read about. There was a disaster. I gotta remember what it was called, but it was a truck in Spain loaded with it was liquid propylene, which is extremely flammable, and they had overloaded the truck with liquid propylene, and I want to say it was in the '70s, late '70s that this happened, and it stopped next to a campground on the highway, and because there was a leak, and the driver like got out to try to do something about the leak, but it just created this massive cloud that rolled for like hundreds of yards, and then when it finally hit an ignition source on the campground, basically imagine just a fog cloud rolling over several acres, and then all of it once it just gets ignited, and it traced its way all the way back to the truck, and when the truck detonated, it was crazy. I wanna say they said that everything in, like, a 3-kilometer radius was leveled.
Jeez.
Yeah, like a huge the entire campground was just leveled into flaming cars.
That just makes me think of Beirut with the fireworks and then the ammonium nitrate.
Yeah, oh my gosh, talk about one of the worst explosions. Yep. Oh yeah, it was the Los Alfaquis disaster in Spain. 23 tons of highly flammable liquefied propylene killed 215 people, severely burned 200 more. Yeah, it was a big, big blast radius.
I looked up the Bath Township thing, and he night after night, it was over property taxes. He night after night went with small quantities of dynamite and filled the basement of the south wing of the school with dynamite. And he studied electrical engineering, and it was wired so perfectly that the police didn't believe that he worked alone, but he did. Detonated, killed 45 children, which happened to be a quarter of the town's children.
Oh my gosh.
30 minutes later, had his truck loaded up with dynamite after killing his wife and burning his farm and burning the house down. He killed his wife, destroyed his farm, and burned his house down, drove to the school, called the superintendent over to his truck, detonated it, killing both of them and 3 people standing nearby. Police later found an additional 500 pounds of undetonated dynamite in the north wing of the school.
Oh
Dang.
my gosh. So
Yeah.
he was going for everybody.
He was fucking going for it. And it was all over property taxes because the school board did an upgrade, but it raised all the property taxes for everyone around, and he was unhappy about it.
I'm pretty sure it's probably more volatile than that. Nothing would justify
No, and
murdering
it sounded like it
7
was like an ongoing battle for 2 years that led up to that.
Yeah,
So I'm sure it was a
killdozer.
lot more.
It was definitely a killdozer incident. I bet they
For
bullied
sure.
that dude to his absolute breaking point.
Oh, I don't doubt it, but yeah, that's the most fucked up. Like that.
Yeah, there's
that
0
doesn't.
justification. That's not what I'm getting to at
No,
all.
for sure, but it's
No,
never as
if he
simple
was
as
alive,
like, oh, my
would-
property taxes went up slightly, I'm gonna kill everyone. It's always, you
I mean,
know,
not even kids. I mean, I'd be on his side and like, hell yeah, that guy's
Mhm.
awesome. If he had just burnt down some homes and not killed nobody.
right. Like a killdozer thing. He didn't kill anybody, he
I do
just
not,
destroyed a bunch of
condone
property.
violence.
What'd you say?
I just said I don't condone violence.
No, not at all. Anyway, before we further incriminate ourselves, let's go. All right, these are good ones. We should keep these, but I have to go.
All right,
Yeah.
let's go. I gotta
Yeah.
get these kids in bed.
Yeah, same. It was fun.
All right. See you guys.
All right.
See you later, guys.
See ya. Have a good night. All right, and that's a wrap. If you want to send us your hate mail, topics to discuss, arguments, or general advice, as always, the email is dadsgoneweird@gmail.com. See you next time, weirdos.
See you next time.